Got all the good things and the
And the
bad
bad
things
things
that
that
make
make
me.
me.
Let's talk about
You don't ever want to hear me sing, PS.
things.
I don't know if you know that about me, but no one, literally no one wants to hear that,
No.
especially not with this snuffleupagus cold.
Did I not tell you about singing lessons in 7th grade?
No.
Oh, so I went to this alternative school, not because I was a problem child. I mean, I'm a problem child anyway, but that's a different podcast. But because of busing, right? So I grew up in LA. My parents didn't want to send us to public school because they were afraid we were going to get bused into East LA and whatever. Anyway, so I went to this alternative, it was called Valley Alternative School. And it was more like you called your teachers by their first names. And it was really like kind of fresh and fruity and open air. And there was a yoga class, right? I learned all about Shavasana in 7th grade. Anyway, there were all kinds of electives that you could take, and singing was one of them. And when you grow up with the name Ricky Lynn Silver, it feels like you should be a rock star.
Yeah. It's a stage name. Yeah.
It's a stage name. So I took a singing class, and I think I probably I don't remember, and I'll say I took 4. And I remember the woman's name, it was Sheila, and it was in this room that had stairs that went up to it, and all that was in there was a piano. And at one point, she was so sweet, bless her heart. I was probably 12 or 13, and she said, "Honey, I think it's better if you try something."
She took you off the stage, basically.
Basically, the hook. Oh.
I'm so sorry for the coughing and the sniffling.
Yeah.
I just have to say, did you notice again? This is 3 for 3. We did not talk before.
No, we did not. We did not. And I was on a plane at 6 a.m. Pacific time. Mountain time today. So 5 a.m. Pacific. So.
And your hair is looking smashing.
Thank you. I tried to get people to show up by tempting them with seeing me with straight hair. I got it cut last night, and she needed to blow it out. So because she's new to my hairs, and she needed to see how it all falls. Anyway.
I love it. Well, one thing that people should know about you is I've never met a woman that gets her hair done more, because your hair is a piece of art. Normally, Ricky has beautiful curly hair, and it is a work of art. So every time I talk to Ricky, she's at the hairdresser. So, that's just another fun fact that people should know about you.
They should. And truthfully, and I'll share this because we're live out to the world, I have to get my hair done every 3 weeks. Color for sure. I am of a certain age. And then the curls, while everybody wants them and thinks they are the most fabulous thing on the planet, the truth is they are more work than straight hair. So anyway, and I came from Arizona this morning, which is very dry. And now I'm in Seattle. So that means probably as we go through the next 30 to 45 minutes, it's just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger.
Oh, girl.
All right. Should we dive in?
Welcome, everyone.
It's time. This is episode 3. Welcome. Thanks for coming. Welcome to Shooting the Shit in a Skirt. Kayla and I are women who met in our 50s. If you don't know us, and we instantly said upon that very first meeting at a retreat in Chicago, where the hell have you been all my life? And ever since that date in June of 2024, our daily conversations have been life-changing, mostly for ourselves, but we figure we might as well share them. So we hit record, and here we are on episode 3. So I'm Ricky Pozzanelli.
I'm Kale Shaw, and today we are going to talk about 2 of the hardest words in the English language. You ready?
Bring it on,
yes
sister.
And no.
Yes and no.
And more importantly, when to use each one without burning yourself out or blowing up your calendar or betraying your own priorities and boundaries. So quick funny story just before we jumped on, and the reason why we're late. So excuse me.
I said technical difficulties. So could you keep that theme in some capacity?
Technical difficulties are totally fine. This was not one of them. We are hosting a party for my husband's team tomorrow, and Total Wine Delivery happened to come at 3:59. And I said, listen, friend, here's my driver's license. We need to speed this up. I'm about to record a podcast live. And he goes, oh, what's it called? And I said, shooting the shit in a skirt. And he was like, oh, we'll speed that up. You better get going, sister. It was so cute. I love the name. I love what we decided to choose for us.
Yeah.
And we're really going to talk. It's a little cheeky, obviously, when you think about two of the hardest words, which are probably the words that we use the most. But I think both of us have stories, and we all have stories, people listening, about when perhaps you said yes to something when it should have really been a no, whether that be personally or professionally, and maybe the cost of what that nice girl means, or maybe resentment creeps in, or just not understanding that you are allowed to put guardrails up. And I think with some wisdom and some years for both of us, those guardrails weren't always as known as they are today, as wise women in our 50s.
As seasoned women of a certain age, I like to say. This came up. So I think each podcast episode, fun fact, we have a list of topics we want to talk about, and we add to it each and every week, because we end up talking about something that we think bears discussing. So this came up last week when last time when we were talking about gratitude and good manners. And I think part and parcel of that is also knowing what your boundaries are. So, I've paid the cost of being that nice girl. Yes. And I think, we've talked about that a lot. My shadow self is that I want to be liked. And the older I get, the more faded that gremlin becomes. But it still lives in there. So I'm gonna tell a quick story because I think it's really, really relevant. It just dawned on me when you went through the list. When I was leaving my long time career in the agency world, I blew that up in 2019. We've had this conversation no less than 1 million times, and I jumped into the void. But I'd done a lot of work with a lot of clients over 15 years at a singular agency. And there was one client in particular who was local in Seattle. They'd spent a lot of money with us on having us do their brand strategy. And I have a little bit of guilt, or had a little bit of guilt when I was working at the agency, because we were charging agency fees, which are in some cases 3 to 5 times double what I charge as an independent consultant. And we were valuable. We provided an amazing service, right? We were basically affecting how brands show up in the market. I mean, it was a pretty impactful, and big giant brands that you guys all love. But the woman who was in charge of marketing at this local company knew I was off and asked me if I would take her sales team through a business development training. And I said yes immediately, because my ego was being touched in a way that I hadn't been touched, because I just blew up my job. I jumped into the void. I didn't have anything else pending. I wanted to help. I had some latent guilt. My shadow self of wanting to be liked was coming to fruition, right? It was just bubbling up to the top. And I said yes. And by the time we got it scheduled and I had time to actually sit and write it, because I don't do sales training as a rule of thumb. I do it as part and parcel, right, of a role when I'm hired to go into a company and help them grow, but I don't do it. That's not my job, right? So I had to create something, which was fine. But in the meantime, I took a job at a company that was in the Bay Area. So not only was I in a brand new role in an industry I had to learn, in a growth minded, in a growth strategy job. And then I joined in January of 2020, and I'd signed up to do the sales training for this company in February of 2020 for free. BTW.
If only you knew me back then, Ricky.
If only. So first of all, let me say this. I went into that job kicking and screaming. So that is another story for as we get deeper into this conversation, but I did go into that job kicking and screaming. So your gut always knows what the right decision to make was, but I took the job and I moved forward. But I had to call my former client and friend and tell her that I could not do the training. I had a solution for her. I have a very good friend who runs a sales training company. He's a very successful sales trainer. But it was going to cost some money, but there was nothing I could do about it. And I could not come through. So a lot of things happened there, right? I felt the cost of being that nice girl. Yes. I was resentful that I'd said yes to a free week-long training because my ego, and I want to talk about that, my ego said yes. My soul said no from the beginning. And I realized that I've got to have guardrails in place no matter what my ego wants to do. Because there was no way that I could fulfill on my promise. And I've told you this before. If I say yes, I'm going to follow through. If I say maybe, I'm probably not going to. So I just say no now.
Yeah. I mean, look, you probably have a million examples. It's a really good one. But I love that you're also vulnerable enough to show that your ego was actually driving.
Yeah.
If I look at my career, I could think of a million examples, even to this day, where I'm saying yes to something that doesn't quite feel right. So I need to learn also to listen to my gut and pause before saying yes, because it ends up kind of growing a fungus on the side of my desk, something that I need to build. And it's not helpful. But my thing was, I was starving for the recognition. So for me, it was like, oh, you want me? Woo, yeah. Like I was so, it was like oxygen. It was like a drug. I would work because the recognition was my driver. So I said yes to every opportunity that came my way, whether it made sense or not. So I have one quick one. I said I was working in HR. I had a full-time job, and there was an internal training job that they decided not to fill, but they needed someone to take over internal training. So another full-time job. They're like, Kale, why don't you take it? I'm like, all right, I don't know anything about training. I want to learn about training. Why not? So it grew a fungus on the side of my desk because I had a full-time job. Right. And I ended up having to go to the board to present why internal training should come to HR from the university. And it was a presentation I didn't want to give. It was a boardroom presentation. At the time, I was a mid-level manager. And anytime you're in front of the board, it's a little nerve-wracking. And so I did this presentation. I did my homework. I looked at how we could do it in a cost-effective way. And I went into the boardroom. I'm like, okay, first slide, internal training moves from university to HR. And this president looks at me and he goes, internal training is not moving to HR. And I go, I'm looking at the two bosses of both HR and of the university. And I'm looking at the two of them and they're silent, saying nothing. So I go to slide 2 and he's like, I said, internal training is not coming to HR. And I literally froze. One of the guys tried to say something and scramble. Meanwhile, I didn't want this job anyway. And he ended up throwing me out of the boardroom. No. Throwing me out of the boardroom. I think he may have said, get the F out. And it was just like, why? Like, why is this so controversial? There's no reason for this to be so controversial. But again, that there was elements of that I should have walked into differently. I usually, before you go into a boardroom, you pre-sell it. This wasn't even a pre-sell. It was like, who cares about internal training? Like at the time, they clearly didn't care about it. So I didn't even think it needed to be a pre-sell. So I was devastated. It was a Friday night. I'm crying in my office at 7:30 p.m.
I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing with you.
No one is there, thank God. And I go home, ruin my whole weekend, come in Monday morning, get on the president's calendar with his EA. And I'm like, listen, I need to talk to him. Wednesday, whatever, gave me 15 minutes. And I walk in and I said, listen, I'd really love to understand what your beef is about internal training. He's like, oh, I don't have one. Just tell me what the budget is and we can talk about it. So it was like, were you testing me? Like, what was what was your beef with it? There really even wasn't one. So the point is, I should have listened to my gut. And I have seriously, and I'm sure people watching have a million examples that they could also say, wait a minute. Why did I say yes in the first place? For the recognition.
Because had your ego not gotten in the way, I'm going to assume for a moment that it was that, you would have said, wait a minute, does this need to be a presentation or is this something? Because if you think about KL today, you would have asked, is this something that I can just have a conversation with the president about? Does it need to be a big fancy presentation? Then it wouldn't have grown the fungus. You could have put a pin in it immediately, and he wouldn't have had to peacock in the conference room.
Yes. Yes. Oh, so many lessons to be learned.
Right.
But the other big lesson, and actually statistically, I think this is important, why women especially over yes.
Right.
And a Harvard study shows that women spend 200 plus more hours per year on unpaid, low visibility tasks at work. Things like scheduling, supporting, smoothing, helping, more reasons behind that, whether we're more natural caregivers.
Right.
200 plus more hours than men for the unpaid work. Now, remember this fungus that was growing on the side of my desk. I wasn't getting paid more for this other full-time job that suddenly was added to my plate. You weren't getting paid for your lovely
skills training that I didn't even do for a living, but said yes to.
And today we would be asking different questions, and we obviously would be making sure that we are getting paid appropriately. Of course, I talk about negotiation and getting paid all day. That's what I do for a living. Not everyone has that in their bag of tricks, but I think the over yesing is something that is not uncommon, especially for women.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I think about yes without capacity as self-sabotage, right? I mean, because then you end up, then you end up, and I don't know if you guys saw my post last week, but about sorry, not sorry. Then you end up saying sorry, and I know you're Canadian, so this feels really comfortable for you, but we're both so tired. This is going to be the best conversation ever. But you end up having overcommitted workers. I think this stat is really interesting. Overcommitted workers are 2.2 times more likely to make mistakes and 60% more likely to miss deadlines, according to HBR. And I think that's really interesting because that's when sorry, not sorry comes into play. Because had you not said yes without capacity in the first place, you wouldn't have had to come back with your tail between your legs, AKA my sales training story, and apologize and have to find a different solution.
Wow. That is incredible. I think the likely to make mistakes, and that also then sabotages your career, 60% more likely to miss deadlines. Now we're impacting your future self in a really significant way in how you're perceived. Another really interesting stat, just to add on to that.
We prepared this time. This is awesome. Really, that we I like that we had this conversation a couple of times since our last episode.
Yeah.
Because you and I were really, we've been on this conversation for almost 2 weeks now.
I know.
And I'm just acknowledging how appreciative I am of us being thoughtful. And let me just say this, and then I promise we can get back to the theme here, but I guess it's on the theme. I'm so grateful that we said yes to doing this, because this is all about doing something that's from our souls. It's not about our egos. Mauro asked me yesterday in the car why I'm a contributing author, why I'm doing the podcast. Do I need adoration and attribution? Ooh. And I said, I said, that has nothing to do why I say yes. I say yes because it fills my soul and it underscores what I'm already doing for a living professionally, but it underscores what I'm doing personally. So I want to acknowledge, these conversations are so awesome. And I think because we're sharing it live with everybody out there, right? Doing a little teeny weeny bit of prep even furthers our conversation in a different way. That's it. Sorry, just a tangent, but
I really like Mauro, who is Ricky's husband, by the way. We're both married to Europeans, which is also interesting because English is not their first language. And so it's often fun to, communication is probably the biggest challenge that we face, Ricky probably as well. But I love really cool question from his perspective. And I think really, really thoughtful. The fact of the matter is we are having these conversations daily anyway. And the fact that then we get to see each other for 30 or 45 more minutes a week in trying to match our busy schedules because we're either voice noting or going back and forth via text. it's so wonderful to be able to share, because you said it a little bit in the intro. This is it's more in a tongue-in-cheek kind of way, but our conversations are literally changing our lives.
Right.
We'll get off a conversation and you'll be like, Kale, like, oh my gosh, what you said. I'm like, what did I say? Or I'll do the same. It's like something so simple that you've installed or I've installed in my daily practice is shared. And why shouldn't we share it with the world? And
yeah,
if people love it, amazing, follow and join us. And, that's it. It's not for any other reason that, hopefully we can inspire someone. And at the end of the day, if we don't, we inspire ourselves. And
yeah.
that's kind of fun enough, because we make ourselves laugh, which is also really great. And yeah. So I want to pivot into the words yes and the words no. And I'm going to cough, so I'm going to go on mute. So Ricky, maybe you take over.
Yeah, I'll talk about it for sure. So this is really the time, if you're ever going to grab a pen and paper during this conversation, this is probably the time to do it, because this is when the nuggets are coming out. Let me start this part of our talk, though, by saying that boundaries don't block opportunities. They filter out the noise so that the right opportunities can find you. Right. You and I talk a lot about the universe. We talk a lot about finding the white space. We talk a lot about that creativity. We talk about moments that matter. It shows up differently in how we post and the content and the things we talk about. But I think it's really, really important to know that guardrails matter, because they create opportunities that can find you. It reduces the cacophony, the noise, all of that.
Did you just say cacophony?
You did. You're welcome. Where's Doug Skoke when we need him?
I literally have never heard that word, but thank you.
It's surrounding noise, like just the garbage noise, the shit noise that goes on in the background that really can be quite distracting.
You talked about guardrails. People who have guardrails and set clear boundaries are 50% more likely to be viewed as strong leaders.
I love that so much. So I just did a direct DM campaign, and it's about joining a roundtable that I'm part of. And I am so grateful to the people who say, no, I can't do it. I have too many commitments right now. Thank you for asking me, maybe another time. That's it. That's it. It's so liberating, even to me. And it reminds me not to say maybe. It reminds me that I can say, no, I don't have time to do it. I'm not taking any more one-on-ones today through the end of the year. I have just written people back and said, I'll be available after January 4th. I'm taking time with my family to eat, relax, and chill out. So
because Ricky, the fact is, listen, every yes that you give has a cost, whether it be a time cost, an energy cost, a reputation cost, an opportunity cost. When you say yes to something, like one of the things that I end up saying yes to a lot is overriding my workout time. Yeah. And, because I work out in kind of late morning, right before 12 o'clock, but I'll be like, I've got clients that are, I'll jump on those calls all day long and bypass my workout time. Yes, I still get a walk in the morning, so I still get out in nature, but I end up sometimes sacrificing things that are really important to me. Those are not negotiable normally. So yeah, when you say yes, it has a cost. Like, no, I'll be available at this time, or I'll be available tomorrow. I tend to try to squeeze it in. Someone needs me. So I still do that today. And I think just understanding that a no is actually really strategic and is important for me to calibrate. I have to remind myself of it all the time.
Yeah, same. I didn't realize that you were self-sabotaging your workout time.
Sometimes,
it's funny. As much as I would love to go at that time of day, I would probably do the exact same thing, mostly because most of my clients are not in my time zone.
Yeah.
Right. So for me, if I go at the crack of dawn or I go at the end of the day, which is a new thing for me lately, I've been loving it so much because I never have to give up that time that I've carved out. And what I'll say is it has to be really, really flippin' special for me to cancel my morning workout.
Yeah. I can get out of routine, and I think that that's
Yeah.
just it. So, but it's, you know, I think from a, you know, if you think about it, what happens if you say yes out of fear or guilt, or when you say yes because it's flattering or it's not aligned?
Right.
I know my gut is my strongest answer or driver. My gut will literally be in a vice grip if it's a no. And what I've learned,
I have a comment, but I'm just going to hold it. So
you should hold that. I actually have a story where I was deciding between two jobs, and I was like, universe, both are really interesting.
right.
Both are amazing. Please give me a sign. I flew to California for this interview. I go out for dinner with the exec team the night before, Mexican restaurant. So and I'm pretty sure it wasn't the food. I didn't drink any tequila, so I don't know. They all drank. I did not. I woke up at 4 a.m. I was on the toilet for 2 hours, and my stomach was literally in a vice grip. I was like, "Well, thank you, universe. Is that my sign?"
Right.
It was, but I don't always have a sign. I don't always have something that's telling me. So my
Right.
neutral zone, if I go into neutral and it sits there and I don't open it or I don't work on it, that is also an indicator for me. And those are things I'm learning.
Yeah. The fungus, right? Yes. And here's the thing I'll say, like, yes isn't neutral, right? Yes has a cost, time, energy, reputation, and opportunity, like you said. And no is a strategy, right? It's not rejection, it's calibration. And if it's not a hell yes, then it's a no. It protects your purpose, your priorities, and your peace. And I think the Iron Throne is the great oracle for decision making.
Yeah.
If I may.
You may. You
Thank
may.
you.
Has there ever been a yes that changed your career, Ricky?
Oh, yes, there has. And I think I've told this story before, but it bears repeating. You know, when I was so I do have training in my background. When I was the health and safety training manager at Fred Hutch Cancer Research here in Seattle, I had a friend who called me and asked me if I wanted to be a brand strategist. And my first question was, what's that? And then my second question was, where do I sign up? And that moment, right? Because I've told you guys this before, my brand essence is blind enthusiasm, right? That saying yes and being open to opportunity, right? Basically changed the face of how I show up in the world today, 25, 30 years later, right? It was an amazing, I mean, I was teaching college, I was training, you know, I was literally helping cure cancer by making sure that all the scientists and researchers and staff were sitting ergonomically correct, that they were getting their bloodborne pathogens training, that they were getting their hazardous materials training, on and on and on and on. But saying yes to being a brand strategist landed me where I am today. And I am incredibly grateful for that one yes. That one yes. And I remember it like it was yesterday. I mean, they had to say yes too. I said
Yeah.
yes to the interview. They said yes to me. And I'd like to think that not only did it fundamentally change my life, but it changed our clients' lives. It changed my coworkers' lives. Like the impact had a huge ripple effect on
Yeah.
so many levels.
It brought you to where you are. I
Yeah.
think
What
my
about
yes
you?
was saying yes to launching a company.
Yeah.
I'm a former CHRO. I thought I had one more chief people officer role in me, and I was interviewing and I kept coming in second. And I thought, there's something going on here. This is really unusual. And I knew that there was a real need, and I have a mission to close the gender and racial pay gap and at least do my part.
Mhm.
And it was an important enough mission. I woke up one day and I was like, okay, I'm going to bring this to life. I thought about doing it in retirement. So I at least had planted some seeds, and saying yes to the salary bump and to moving forward has been the most powerful, life-changing career move I've ever made. Believe me, there were moments I wanted to throw in the towel and
Of
say
course.
no. Launching a company was not, for sure, is not for the faint of heart. But I think that would be my most proud yes. But let's actually move into no's. Is there any no's that created breakthroughs for you? I have one if you want me to start.
Yeah, start.
So I also had people pleaser mindset mentality
Mm,
for a lot of my days, my early life for sure, and even creeps in today. You know that my husband passed away 20 years ago now, and that moment was the first time in my life that I could say no without feeling guilty about it. And it
so say
sort
more
of
about that. Say no to what?
it freed me from having to make commitments to things that I didn't really want to do, from saying yes
Mhm.
to something that I didn't really want to
Yeah,
do. It not that it gave me an excuse, it was an obvious reason to be saying no to something. But if someone would invite me to a party, or can you make this? Can you bring this? Can you do this? I would always say yes. And it really freed me and was like a massive, obviously for a million reasons why that was a
right.
life-changing experience. But it was a breakthrough for me to actually be able to practice that word and feel zero guilt about it. I
Yeah,
didn't have capacity for guilt,
right.
and it carried me through the last 20 years. No has become a really beautiful word in my vocabulary that nobody cares that much whether I show up for the party anyway. Nobody cares that much, and I can't cook,
Sure.
so no one wants me to bring anything
Yeah,
to that.
that's true. I have been in the kitchen with you a number of times, and
It's
nobody
like
wants
literal,
that.
no one wants that. So
Yeah,
I think that I just, I also realize that people they're thinking a lot less about you than you think they are. And
yeah. You said a couple of things that I think are really important, and then I want to get to just a really simple framework because I think it's important that we talk about it. But you said two things that matter in this conversation. The first is that, Matt passed away, which is terrible, but that practicing of no over and over and over again is how you train that muscle.
mm,
The one thing I want to caution everybody listening is it's not no to everything, right? It's not, I'm putting my hand up to the screen, right? It's not putting your hand up and saying no automatically, right? I just had a
mm,
conversation with somebody the other day that, one of the reasons I don't like talking to this person, this is not me, this is somebody telling me this, but one of the reasons I don't like talking to this person is because they immediately start with no. Everything is no. They can't, they won't. No, I'm not going to do it. So I think, you talked about earlier, like there's a practice of it, and then there's also the strategic use of it, right?
yeah,
Because there's plenty of things that we say yes to, right? You starting, right, the salary bump, me to saying yes to working at Landor Associates and then at Hornell Anderson, and then ultimately starting my own company as well, right? There's plenty of things we say yes to, but no has to be strategic.
yeah,
So let's talk a little bit about a framework that you and I discussed, which I think is really important because it's how you get to that strategy. And there's really three parts of it.
hmm
There's the yes with intention, there's the messy middle, and
how to say no with clarity.
how to say no with clarity. So
Yeah,
sorry, I'm at a glitch.
that's why it's a teamwork.
I
Okay,
know.
so let's talk about saying yes with intention.
Yeah.
There's three questions that you can ask yourself before you say yes to make sure you're doing it intentionally. First question is, do I want this?
Hmm.
Second question is, do I have the capacity for this? And the third question is, does it align with my goals? Keep in
Right.
mind, a lot of people don't set goals, right? So let's start there. Let's look at your goals. And then what is capacity? What are my boundaries? What do I have space for outside of my
Right.
main responsibilities and priorities? And then do I want this? That's when you lean into your gut or whatever, however you make decisions.
Right, for sure. And I say this to clients, I've said it to you. a million times, like you have to write this stuff down, because when it's swirling around in your head, it's really hard to answer these questions. And I think as soon as you acknowledge them, put them on paper and make them real, it changes the dynamic and it changes your decision-making ability.
Ricky, I saw a slide, it has to have been 25 years ago now, that said, and I think it was from not LHH, but Institute of Coaching Professionals. I can't remember where it came from. I will try to remember and we'll put it in the show notes. If you set a goal, you have a 5% chance of hitting it. If you set a goal and write it down, that goes up between 5 and 10%. If you set a goal, you write it down and you tell someone, goes up to 50%. And if you set a goal, you set a goal, you write it down, you tell someone, and you have an accountability partner, goes up to 95%.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
So don't underestimate goals. And by the way, it's the perfect time of year to do that. It's always a great time of year to do that and to recalibrate your goals.
It is. And I like to set them up as micro goals. I think in one of our episodes, we should probably talk about micro goal setting, which is, my 14, 30, 60, 90 plan, right? And getting to 90 days and having completed whatever your North Star is, but also your small list, right? For that quarter. Anyway. Okay. So yes, with intention, the second part of this framework is that messy middle, right? Because that's when we spiral. Do I say yes? Do I say no? Yeah. And this is what I like to call the beige part, or the indifference, right? Because the opposite of love is not hate, but it's indifference. And this is where that boundary lives, right? And if you don't know what your boundaries are, then they just kind of swirl around in that messy middle. A lot of the ways, and we talked about this the other day, that I make decisions about who gets on my calendar is because I have a color-coded calendar. So red is client work. Yellow is potential clients or conversations. Purple is networking. Green is personal. And this purpley gray color is like all my side hustle stuff, like my app and a variety of other things I do on the side.
Are you following the Jesse Itzler big ass calendar? Do you know he has
I do know about it, and I wanted to order it.
You should match it. You should match your color codes to his, because he did a cute video the other day about green is for birthdays. And then he went and asked everybody on his team, including his wife, Sarah Blakely. And he was like, what color should birthdays be? And no one chose green. And he's like, but green are for birthdays. And everyone else was like purple, pink, yellow.
Yeah, I would say hot pink. Anyway, so I think it's important to have a system, right? So you've got to have know what your schedule is. Mine's color coded. If there's not enough yellow on my calendar each week, I start canceling the purple, rescheduling, not canceling. I start rescheduling the purple, because the purple is networking, which we talked about in our first episode, is very, very important. Yeah. But I have to balance that, right? So saying no to no more one-on-ones or networking through the end of the year is really, really curated and strategic for me. Yeah. Because I need a little bit of a break. I need to get ready. I need to set my intention for next year, which is our next episode, everybody. But the things in this messy middle that are important are your schedule, your energy. So sleep, being aware of the brain fog, your values. Have you written, you guys are going to hear me talk about this all the time, even in subsequent episodes. Have you written down your core values, and do you know how to actualize them? Again, goals and values are very important in decision making, and for you to be strategic to the two most important words in the English language, which are yes and no, and then ultimately your goals, right? How much money do you need to make? Have you hit your goals? Are you building community? Whatever those are, when I look at my calendar, I know if I'm reaching them or not each and every week. And that helps me. I don't want to say stay out of the messy middle, right, Kale? Because we're human. Yeah. The messy middle exists on a daily basis, but having strategies in place to clear the path, to part the Red Sea. It's Hanukkah. Yep. I feel I can talk about this today, but to part the Red Sea and see and remind yourself what the beacon is and how you're going to get there is really important.
Yeah. Beautifully said. Okay. Last but not least, how do you say no with clarity? This is actually really important, and something that I talk about with my clients around negotiation is that saying no doesn't have to be dramatic. It doesn't have to be apologetic. It's short and direct, and do not fill a space with words. So that is the space filler. When people are saying no or doing something that they feel is a bit awkward, negotiating, they fill the space, the awkward silence. Don't do that. Just say, I appreciate the ask. It's a no for me right now. Or I'm just not available.
Yeah.
And it's that simple.
Yeah. So it's time for the challenge. So the challenge this week that we're asking all of you is to define your boundaries and very simply trust your gut. Really important. We can talk about it, but remember to write down what your boundaries are, define them clearly, and trust your gut. Your gut knows. Ask the ivory throne if in doubt. Sorry.
Coming back to
I can't resist.
My 2 hours on the toilet with my gut.
That could be an episode in and of
itself. Never live that one down.
You will.
Yeah. So listen, if you enjoyed this, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Of course, to each of us on LinkedIn, and keep saying yes with purpose. Keep saying no with clarity, and keep shooting the shit and scourge.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for joining us.
See you soon. Happy holidays. Bye.